Thanks very much, Bill. This first panel represents the kind of global reach of IMTFI. We have 3 presentations from 3 different continents. First up is Vivian Zokoto and Muya Imasuku talking about their work in Zambia.
Good morning. Our presentation is going to be on cashlessness versus cashlightness in Zambia. A lot of work and a lot of the industry is currently focusing on what happens to a financial ecosystem in any country when you introduce a technology-based payment option, which is introduced at a time when cash and other payment systems are already in use. An interesting opportunity occurred in Zambia where you have 2 things happening at the same time. One, of course, is the introduction of a technology-based payment system in the form of mobile money and internet banking. But the other thing that was happening around the same time was that the basic form of financial transactions, which was cash, was being changed as well, because the central bank decided to change the national currency to a more portable one. So the question is, when individuals are faced with 2 new options, cashlightness versus cashlessness, which one do they choose? That's the focus of our presentation today.
Thank you very much. I'll just give a brief background of our study. And I'll start by simply saying that the rebasement of the Zambian kwacha was initiated by the Bank of Zambia, one of the highest financial institutions in our country, and approved by the Zambian government. So I'd also like to say that the rebasement of the Zambian kwacha does not just involve the knocking out of the 3 zeros. Of course, we did knock out the 3 zeros, but this was done at a time when there was a low inflation rate in our country. And I would also like to point out that the amounts converted into the new currency was kind of rounded off to decimal places. The reasons for the rebasement of the Zambian kwacha was not just to kind of increase confidence of our national currency, but it was done in order to restore an efficient mechanism, payment mechanism, and also business transaction. We also find out that the process of the rebasement of the Zambian kwacha took a period of about 6 months, and we were able to get the old currency replaced by the new currency during that time. And in the present study, you might have noticed that there are 2 key terms that are being used here. The term cashless really does not refer to the people who do not have cash, but it refers to the systems and mechanisms that do not essentially use cash, hard cash, such as internet banking. And for this one, we have banks like Bankless Bank, Access Bank, etc. And we also do have, mobile money transactions where people are able to actually buy talk time, pay for electricity bills, water bills using phones. And I'd also like to say that the second term, cash light, really here refers to the rebased Zambian kwacha. Reasons, the research questions that we have in our present study were 3-fold. The first one being that if the new and more portable kwacha is going to increase the use of cash, we just wanted to find out if this introduction of the new and more portable kwacha will increase the use of cash. The second research question was with respect to the transition from using lots of notes to fewer notes, whether this is going to have positive or negative implications on the use of cashlessness alternative. alternatives. The third one is that if the use of mobile money and use of coins will be dependent on the social and economic status of the people. And the sample of our study constituted three categories. The first category was that of the low class, and this one constituted people such as waiters, garden boys, maids, etc. And the second category constituted people in the medium and high income bracket. This constituted engineers, doctors, and so on. And the last one constituted the others, such as students. At this point in time, I'll call upon my colleague to present to you the preliminary results that we got out of our study. Thank you.
So we're just going to highlight a few things from the findings. We used the sample that he talked about, conducted some interviews and gave out questionnaires. We gave out questionnaires to about 700 people and conducted interviews with about a third of those. So first we looked at Cashlight, what the experience was with having a more convenient form of currency to use to pay for goods and services. Most people thought that the more convenient form of currency did not really affect their daily purchases. So they were spending the same amount of money as they used to. You have about 3/4 of people, but then you have between 26 and 34% of people saying that switching the form of currency had actually changed their daily purchases. 80% of the sample were comfortable with the new currency, but 20% of the sample was not comfortable with the new currency after the transition period. 65 to 69% of the sample preferred the new currency, but interestingly, you had 35 to 31% of our sample saying that they disliked the new currency and preferred the old one, even though the new one was supposed to be better and more portable than its predecessor. In terms of businesses, we asked whether people thought that businesses had been affected by the new form of currency, since one of the main goals of the currency rebasement was to provide businesses with easier ways to do their transactions, handle lower volumes of cash, et cetera, et cetera. And what we found was an interesting split where you had about equal percentages of the sample thinking that the businesses had and had not been impacted by the rebasement. There was an assumption that socioeconomic class would affect people's comfort with the new currency. You had about 67% of our sample saying that they thought that there would be a difference between how different people in different socioeconomic classes would adapt to the new currency. An interesting observation to do with the introduction of new currency tends to be how people use coins. Coins were handled about 16% of the time. That was based on estimates. And we found that there were some negative feelings associated with coins in general. So for example, we had about 26% of our samples saying that they would not pick up coins if they found them on the floor. And when we asked in detail about the values of the coins, we had 82% of our samples saying that they would not pick up the lowest value coin, but up to 8% saying that they would not pick up the highest value coin, which is surprising because that in the old currency was equivalent to 1,000 kwacha. So. In terms of perceived usefulness of coins, about 70% of the sample thought that coins in the new currency were useful or very useful, but we also had at least 10% of people saying that they thought coins were completely useless. And in terms of how they perceived that coins were useful to others, what we found was that people thought that coins were more useful to themselves, but less useful to others. In terms of how people spent their coins, one of the things was that there wasn't really any difference between how people spent the old currency and the new currency. But in terms of how people spent the coins, what we found was that coins in Lusaka, in our Lusaka sample, were pretty much used as a savings tool. So people did not generally want to spend their coins immediately. They would either save them completely, save them and use them for something specific, or save them and use them when they didn't have any money, when they were short of cash. How about the cashless form, mobile money? How did that do? 91% of our sample had heard about mobile money. 39% of our sample had used mobile money at least once. When we asked non-users about why they hadn't used mobile money or had discontinued using it, bad experiences featured significantly in the reasons why people weren't interested in using mobile money. 12% of people said they had lost their mobile phone, and 23% of our sample said that they did not need mobile money. Majority of mobile money transactions were used for money transfer. So it looks like at this particular time in Lusaka, when people want to transfer money, mobile money seems to be a tool that they use, but when people want to spend money, they still use cash and coin. We talked to users and asked them what features of mobile money they used, and safety actually wasn't one of the things that they thought was an advantage of mobile money compared to cash. What was the features that they considered important were the speed of financial transactions and the convenience that mobile money offered above what was possible with cash. We've just started scratching the surface of our interview data, and some of the findings from our interview data include the fact that a lot of people disliked coins, so we had lots and lots of comments about how difficult coins were to handle, etc. We also found that for mobile money, people used mobile money for specific purchases in addition to money transfer. We found that a select group of our interviewees actually preferred using electronic transactions rather than hard cash. But in general, if you look at the financial ecosystem in Lusaka, there are currently very limited opportunities for people to use mobile money. And so since mobile money is in its infancy in Lusaka, this might change as spending opportunities increase. However, we also came across some merchants who had initially introduced mobile money as a payment option for their goods and services and had discontinued that because of low patronage. So even though it's in its infancy, we had some merchants saying we're not going to use mobile money anymore because nobody's using it. So far, the data that we've collected in Zambia suggests that, for now at least, there seems to be a preference for cash-light options rather than cashless options. And in particular, people prefer to use notes and not coins. But of course, if there are additional opportunities provided for payment, this might change over time in Zambia, and people might prefer cashlessness at some point. But for now, it looks like it's cash-light, not cashless. And we want to say thank you to all those who helped us with the research, including IMTFI for funding it, the Bank of Zambia for granting us interviews, Dr. and Dr. Serpel, our research assistants in the field, and also at VCU and our research participants. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next presentation comes to us from India, and it will be presented by Amulya Krishna Champatare and Parul Agarwal.
Good morning, everyone. The study that we are going to talk about is basically one of the model, financial inclusion model that we explore to understand how it is working. It's a model of mix of government and private partners are private players are playing a major role on this. So the study is about exploring the nature, scope, and feasibility of existing technological infrastructure of India's national e-governance plan, customer service scheme towards converting in-cash transaction to cashless transaction. So normally it's known as kiosks banking, and throughout the study we'll give little background about the project, about the scheme, about the financial inclusion scenario in India. We'll talk about model, the motivation factors, what are the key research questions that we are trying to understand, and our preliminary observation. Going to basically understanding the overall scenario of India's financial outreach overally, the covering in mass is India is a country that seventh largest country by area and two most populous country with diverse socioeconomic culture. It is one of the major economy, its largest economy by GDP and third largest by PPP. With that background, still the recent census gives us a figure that 30% of population is living below poverty line. About 69% of population are in rural area, and particularly in rural area where the infrastructure, services, as well as financial services, everything is really poor, as also the employment opportunity is always limited. The banking spread out, no doubt India banking industry is massively scaled up. Still in the rural areas there are lot of unbanked population. So 60% of population is unbanked till now, and majority of this 60% mostly the rural populations. So 7 branches per 1 lakh adult in rural India. So with that background and with that gap in the overall financial spread of the sector, there are massive intervention from government side as well as private organizations. From government side, there are programs, pan-India programs. One of the most popular program, financial inclusion program, is known as the self-help group, which has recently revised and with major features of savings, credit, and other financial component with that. RBI's number of intervention in financial inclusion, introducing base bank account with relaxing the KYC norms, and also introducing the business correspondent and business facilitator model, which is the third-party agent model that bank can appoint and offer the banking services. Recently, a new banking license is one of the point that government is working on, and there are number of applications, and we are expecting a good number of new banks. One of the another initiative in the financial inclusion happened recently is government has introduced a national women bank, and apart from that, there are program, the developmental program of National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, National Rural Livelihood Missions, or National Health Insurance Program. These are massive program in the country where mostly one of the key component in each of this program is the financial inclusion. Any form, any channel they use, but financial inclusion is one of these component. The another massive program that basically the study is focus is on about is the National E-Governance Plan, where the government is planning to establish the hubs across the states as well as at the block and district level with net internet access. This whole massive program is mostly focusing, the major objective is to increase the accessibility of government programs, social and the private sector services to the citizen at an affordable cost. So the basically the national e-governance plan, if you look at, there is a statewide area network. At each state level, there is a huge internet-based infrastructure is established. Another setup is established unit, which is really collecting and collaborating all the government scheme data and the government program data. And then there is another intervention of the service delivery gateways. And the service delivery gateways, from there onward, there is a partnership is basically then private player play a major role at the panchayat, at the village level. There are customer service centers. Further, the model is we'll spend little time to understand the model. Then we'll look after the look at the research questions. So the model is that we have the Department Information Technology at the central government of India. So under the ministry DIT, they have launched a special purpose vehicle which is exclusively working on promoting the e-governance program. The DIT is collaborating with each state governments. At each state government, there is a state division of facilitating these services. Then this special service vehicle is also operating private partner. Basically, we can talk it is service center agency. They called it under this scheme. And when it comes to the financial inclusion part, this particular agency also known as the business correspondent. Then this business correspondent or the service center agencies, they appoint the village level entrepreneur, which is working at the customer service centers, and then that center is the point which go to the client level. So it's a massive public-private partnership framework. This whole model is working, and the CS is basically looking after it on 3 to 4 or 5 key components they are trying to achieve through this whole initiative. One is delivering public, social, and the private services at the village level. Then marketing the social backward population, a part of the inclusive growth. Basically targeting to the poorest of the poor households. To market the government schemes and the beneficial private schemes, promoting rural entrepreneur and providing access to equal education and upgradations, skill upgradations, and enabling community to participate and in an inclusive manner to have a larger impact of the program. So what basically this model, what motivates us is one is now in India there is a massive attention for the branchless banking under this financial inclusion drives, and at this juncture one point is that each of the stakeholders really need critical inputs, which is really essential to have the correctiveness in increase the efficiency of the models, and to see the replications measures and what could be the better way to go about for the larger impact. And another thing that point that we did a study at CMF IFMR. We did a study on the same model earlier, where the model only offering the financial services. So there we see the model, kiosk bank model, is not viable in the rural area if it is only dealing with the financial products. So as now under this e-governance and the whole governments and private partnership model, a massive network has established. 1 lakh kiosk has established at the rural areas across 6 lakh villages. This model is also one factor it's offered, one inbuilt factor is that as government involvement is there, so the trust factor play a major role at the ground. And it's a very innovative model of like offering the non-finance and the financial products. So one side of like the, you have a like kiosk at the village level which offer the government and provide the government scheme information, as well as like they have a tie-up with the bank to offer the financial products. With that motivation, so three key research questions that we thought of basically exploring is understanding the particular VLE or the CSE units, how the financial viability and sustainability of that unit. Second, what is the client's perspective till now, and what are the like further expectations they have on this model. And the third component in research is trying to like understand what are the like at the village level number of livelihood transactions are like have taking place, particularly the agriculture transactions. So what is the scope of this particular model to facilitate some portion of this cash-based transaction into the cashless transactions? So we have some preliminary observations. My colleague Parul will share that.
So I think we are running short of time. The model, so to study the model, we had partnered with the private organization called ISET that have set up these village level hubs that provide both the financial and non-financial services to the last mile clients. And for that purpose, we are actually interviewing 30 village level entrepreneurs who are operating these hubs. And for each of those entrepreneurs, we surveyed some 30 clients. So we had a total sample of 300 beneficiaries. And then in addition to that, we interviewed some 60 farmers because we just wanted to see if that model can be replicated into the livelihood, in facilitating the livelihood transactions. So that was another experiment that we were trying to do. And we also interviewed some of the bankers to see what they feel about the entire model with all the policy of decongestion, where a lot of financial services are being moved from the main bank branches to these hubs. The preliminary observations, first I would like briefly talk about the entrepreneurs. So how are these entrepreneurs selected and who are they? So these are mostly educated people. They have completed their secondary education. They mostly start up this hub using their own investments and through some support from the private organization, in this case ISET. They earn a monthly income of rupees 15,500 from this kiosk. And like this model is very nascent right now, so it's it can expand in future. And the average number of villages that a hub covers is 13. And the current average client outreach is 10,000 in all, and just for financial services, it is 8,000. The clients who come to these kiosks, so it was surprising to see that majority of clients were school kids. Why was that? Because a lot of government payments were being facilitated through the kiosk, so these kids were receiving scholarships for their education. So you would see like students queuing up in front of the kiosk to get their check encashed, and also, to do little bit of transactions, withdrawing tiny bits of money and depositing some. So like it is trying to inculcate a very basic habit of saving. So it's like kids, they are enjoying to have, one bank account at this age that they have. Then we also had old aged people in our sample. Then average savings per household that we interviewed is around rupees 2,300, which is approximately $40. So the most of the clients, they get information about the kiosk from villagers and friends. So it's like mostly word of mouth marketing that is happening out there. So what are the factors, like why do village level entrepreneurs, why do they get engaged in so much of crowd management and so much of complicated stuff? So according to them, it gives them employment, but it also increases their monthly income. So most of them, they have other businesses or other sources of livelihood. So it's like an additional income for them. And also about 90% of these entrepreneurs believe that it increases their social status, and also it strengthens their social networks also, which is very important in rural areas in India. As I told you, branding is mostly through word of mouth, so people come to know about it through each other, which is very, so the main problem with a lot of different financial services that we offer in the country is that people don't know about it. There is no awareness. But because these hubs are located in the radius of 5 kilometers, it's very easy for people to know about it. And also it spreads, people share their experiences with each other, and it happens that way. So, but it is a policy of this model to create billboards and signs which are very clear, which provide all the information to the people. So that way there is no information asymmetry as well. Talking quickly about what are the services that are being offered and what is the footfall, like are people actually using these services? So mostly people use it for withdrawing cash from their basic savings account, which is huge. Then remitting money from one account to the other is also a difficult service which is rarely provided to rural people. So a lot of them are using this service. Receiving government payments and producing statements. So producing statements is very important because it acts as an identity proof, or it is a requirement in a lot of transactions. Like if you apply for a loan, you need to provide your bank statement. So this is, again, one of the services which is being used and is being appreciated by the beneficiaries. Talking about the non-financial services, so people pay their bills, as the team from Zambia said, that they use these services for paying bills, utility bills. And then these kiosks, they also have internet facilities. So they provide printing facility, photocopying, etc. So this is like one-stop shop wherein you get all the kind of services. So what are the services that provide? As Amulya pointed out, so these kind of kiosks, they are not considered to be financially viable because they just provide financial services. But because it is a multi-service approach, we see that a lot of these services are actually generating a lot of revenue for the VLEs. So withdrawing cash from savings account, opening a savings account, cash deposit into FD and RD account, taking digital photographs, which is requirement in colleges, like filling in forms, etc. It generates a lot of revenue for the entrepreneurs. So this is very important. So like when we talk to the clients and ask them, like, before the advent of CSCs, did you actually use to remit money, or did you actually use to deposit money or withdraw money? Then majority of people, like 45 to 50%, said that they didn't do these kind of transactions. So like with the introduction of CSCs, they started using these facilities more and more. Clients' experience has been great. They say that it reduces a lot of time and cost that they had to invest in accessing financial services. Convenience is the key. Like the location of the hub is also the key. So people really like it because it's easily accessible. They don't have to travel miles. So that is one advantage. They really appreciate the quality of services provided and the pricing of the services. They know they are not being cheated. All the information is shared up there. Bankers, they also appreciate the model, but because it's in a very nascent stage right now, they think that there are some glitches or there are some challenges. So like larger government payments, how are the larger payments going to be offered through these kiosks? There might be technological issues with these kiosks, like internet facilities not there in remote rural areas, so how do we expand to that? So, but this is a work in progress, and it is expected to evolve and improve. So doing a very quick SWOT analysis of the entire model. So the strengths that it has. The bank that we were studying is a state bank. It's a nationalized bank, and it's the policy of the bank that it moves all its smaller customers to these kiosks. So kiosks have no reason not to exist, right? So all the crowd of the smaller clients is diverted from the main bank branches to these kiosks. So they are definitely functioning, and that is a strength. It offers a multi-service, so again, it's a strength. Then training and location is a strength. There are, as I told you, there are technical glitches, etc. But there are definitely opportunities of this model to innovate, and this is what we tried to do when we reached out to some of the farmers. Can I get just 1 minute to wind up? Yeah. So, do you want me to wind up? Yeah. So we reached out to some farmers to check if they would like to do all their in-cash transactions through these kiosks, like reaching out to the retailers and getting price information through these kiosks. So agriculture definitely is the main source of livelihood in India, and especially in the state where we conducted this study. It has a huge amount of cash transaction happening there, amounting to 12 million to 10 million, somewhere around that. So we tried to ask them if they would like to use this kiosk to get price information and also to transfer money, remitting money, and they were mostly willing to do that, so which is a good sign. We are trying to explore it further. So this is the last slide. So we would want to study it a little further. So as I told you, school kids are using this service a lot, right? So we would want to see if getting a scholarship amount, it actually motivates their parents also to get banked, right? So because they go along with their kids to get the amount, to get the money encashed. So does that kind of habit or that experience motivates parents also to get themselves a bank account opened and get into the formal financial sector? The second is owning a savings bank account at a very early age of 13 or 14. Does it inculcate a habit of saving in these kids, which is like a major problem that we see around? Does it imbibe the principle of money management among kids and youth? Does it help them? Does it help the future generation? I know this is difficult to study right now, but yeah, we could definitely get the preferences and follow up with people. And last, as I told you, we would want to see if we could use it in different livelihood sectors. I think we exceeded time, but yeah, thanks. Sorry about that.
Thank you very much. And our last presentation today is by Eric Hirsch, talking about work in Peru.
Okay, thanks so much for having me. It's really wonderful to get a chance to present this research so far. Okay, money is fungible in theory, right? But just just about anybody who's tried to buy something small with a large bill can attest, the size of a cash denomination can present a limit to money's fungibility in practice. Big bills often become a barrier to the transaction if the seller doesn't have enough change. And in the rural communities of the Peruvian Andes Colca Valley, which is where I'm doing my research, large cash units like the 50 and 100 sol bill can be so rare, unwieldy, and for some people even useless that not every merchant accepts it. So in contrast to what we heard about Zambia, coins can sometimes be more valuable in practice than large bills. People generally prefer coins. Yet when their high stored value does get put to work, big bills can inhabit and set off a wide range of socially significant moments, can structure the way people organize their resources, and can even configure how they relate to one another. So this study analyzes large cash denominations, asking how their mobility helps drive the investments on which Colca's economies and cultures thrive. It's become an especially present cash form there as families are turning away from living solely on their crops. So today we're gathered at this conference on the truly exciting transformations being made to expand financial inclusion. But I want to linger on cash, specifically big bills such as Peru's 100 sol note, as its own kind of technological innovation. Different cash units do different things. For example, on buses throughout Lima, the person in charge of collecting fare, like buses in a lot of places, clings a handful of coins together, right, to communicate that he's coming, that it's time to pay. In Colca, I argue, large cash units are situated at and create a nexus of social institutions by virtue of the limits to their fungibility. When small change must be made, or when a decision has to be taken about what to do with that unwieldy cash amount, fungibility's limits activate, highlight, adjust, and bring into being, or to use Justin Richland's term, potentialize relationships, investments, and values on the ground. So for example, in the community of Yankee, an entrepreneurial association of 4 families engaged in cultural tourism, which I'm working with, sometimes receives profits or investments from a local microfinance NGO in the form, sometimes, of larger bills. To divide this money equally among the families, the association president, named Guillermina, tends to make a small purchase at a Yankee bodega to break up each bill, what she calls sencillar, making change, and literally to simplify in Spanish, with sencillo also being a word for small money, manageable coins, etc. So we might call this transaction the activation purchase. In passing on the burden of the big bill, a number of immediate effects come to light. Guillermina here is keeping that large cash unit moving. She's discarding and exchanging the unit because it cannot be shared without its stored value being activated. And she's also linking her association to the broader village economy through that little purchase. And the simpler units she receives become more fungible change, a malleable medium to articulate her view of the association's priorities as she earmarks the smaller money, making calculations about how both to distribute the cash to the group and to reinvest some of it in small purchases that could enhance the prestige, profitability, even the cultural authenticity your organization's able to project. So that seemingly ordinary moment in which cash changes hands is pregnant with meaning, which fills out and, as Jessica Catalino puts it, transforms the value of money. And this offers a fruitful approach to analyzing the relationship between money's mobility and local forms of investment. And that's from the financial investments that NGOs and municipalities are making to the everyday social, emotional, and imaginative investments people make in themselves, one another, and ideas about their political and cultural identities. Taking inspiration from the work in anthropology of Keith Hart, Jane Geyer, Carly Schuster, Bill Maurer, and a number of others, I'm approaching big bills and the particular social lives and entanglements they call into being as key indicators and mediators of recent changes to everyday life. So Peru's Colca Valley, pictured here, is located in the backyard of the country's bustling second city of Arequipa, and it's mirrored paradigm changes that development policy has seen transnationally. In broad terms, development there began with ambitious state-led modernization programs meant to bring this once extremely remote cluster of communities into the firm clutches of the national economy. Over the past 2 decades, Colca has seen the rise of microfinance in what Ananya Roy calls the financialization of development, which has more broadly entailed, in addition, the transition to narrowly focused collaborative interventions. Investment in small enterprises mainly, in the sectors of agricultural export, tourism, archaeological site restoration, and especially investing in indigeneity, and that's the title of my overall dissertation where I'm drawing this work. And that means investment in entrepreneurs promoting ideas of indigenous culture, indigenous history, and indigenous capital. These investments are being made against a backdrop of astronomical growth and prosperity. Peru now has South America's second highest Fitch and Standard & Poor's sovereign credit rating, with many Peruvians worried because national growth has slowed from 6.5% down to just 5%. Initiatives ranging from the Spanish Agency for International Development Cooperation to the U.S. Peace Corps program, once ubiquitous in Colca, are now dramatically cutting down their projects and pulling out staff. Colcans have, of course, been using cash for a long time. Colca was never outside of the Peruvian economy, and it was never entirely cashless, but rather more cash poor, or better yet, relatively cash homogenous, right? Still today, big bills are conspicuous minority denominations, and according to one market vendor I'm following, big bills came in with Peru's growth as well as the increased presence of tourists there. Okay, so with that setting laid out, this study of cash as a technological innovation is guided by the following research questions. What can cash units, specifically in the form of big bills, tell us about the relationships within a community and how people are figuring out how to self-identify? Perhaps more importantly, how does money become an investment? How does indigenous culture and heritage get mapped onto the value of money? So we see this presentation for an archaeological site restoration project in full transparency, including the investment amount, and inversión is investment in Spanish. And so lastly, what does that mean for day-to-day life? And as another investment, this formerly kind of brutalist municipality building was retrofitted with this facade that has the straw roof and the stone that's kind of trying to talk to a more local style. So the modest hypothesis guiding this research, then, is that big bills often cannot be spent without the mediation of certain social relations. The activation of the high value they store engages a whole host of encounters and can draw together a wide range of contexts, experiences, and ethics. Denomination size, furthermore, mediates what Zelizer calls earmarking practices, in which the origin, mobility, and destination of particular cash units are imbricated with the amount of value these units contain, and also concretize the meaning and even the pedagogical and moral messages they carry. So large cash may also offer inclusion by hooking actors up to circuits of commerce to which they might not otherwise have access. So this study ethnographically examines the process of making change in 3 specific sites. In the first site, the market in Chivay, the regional capital and a node for the sale of crops from throughout the region, crops and lots of other stuff, I longitudinally track 15 vendors over the course of a year. These market vendors vary in age, and except for one, are all female, with husbands sometimes offering help. I've been routinely purchasing an inexpensive item with a 50 or 100 sol bill from each of these vendors at a total of 5 different small purchases each week in order to allow substantive conversation without also overwhelming these vendors with big bills. I record the interactions taking place that they have to do in order to make change, and also conduct interviews in which vendors describe that process. I've also been asking about vendors' personal and family expenses in an effort to learn how large cash units they sometimes keep get earmarked, and to discern the overall mobility of these units. So this is a picture of the market, and here's a vendor of Maruja, who owns a stationery store right by the market, who I'm also talking to. The second site where I look at large cash units is the Cultural Tourism Association in the nearby community of Yanque, which I talked about at the top. And the third analyzes the use of big bills in the home of the Huarachas, one of the association's member households, which has also seen success in cash cropping, and they keep a museum and private archive, which has attracted many investors interested in their home as a key local site of indigenous identity. So preliminary results suggest the wealth of ordinary investments that big bill activation presupposes, entails, configures, and reveals. Reina is a 30-year-old woman who runs a breakfast stall from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. every morning in Chivay. Perhaps the finding with the widest implications comes from her. Big bills, she says, are for savings. And when they're not, she told me, they're used for larger expenses, such as her daughter's upcoming university costs. When big bills need to be broken, she suggested, in a finding also corroborated by Roxana, who runs a small snack shop, Graciela, a produce vendor, and Maruja, who runs the stationery store, she can usually run to any number of nearby fellow vendors. The other vendors these women rely upon for making change are also often the same people they buy needed items from and sell to, so there's exchange as well as change. These relationships are formed through years of working nearly every day in the same place. When the need arises to break a bill, vendors are obligated to make change for one another if possible, in a process that cements contextual notions of order, neighborliness, and reciprocity, ideas that get made especially clear when Reina described the selfishness of people that don't make change. Some vendors have been quite reflexive about this market's significance for the resurgence of a local indigenous culture, especially considering that over the past 15 years, Chivay seems to have transformed from a dead country town into a bustling hub of tourists, development professionals, and microfinance banks, all anchored in a new kind of indigeneity economy. Some see the market's vibrancy as an index of the broader successes in cultural revalorization, and in turn the presence of big bills as a sign of the market's success. If an index of a thriving market, big bills also resembled a special genre of cash that vendors had to learn to manage. In the Tourism Association, the fact that profit and investment often take the form of large cash denominations means that members rarely, if ever, equally share money at a given moment. When they do, money becomes fungible by that small activation purchase that association president Guillermina has to make. But what we see more often is a kind of longer-term collateralized profit holding in which lines of affiliation within the group are constantly reinforced by the fact that somebody is owed and somebody owes all the time. This situation spawns other relationships of credit and debt as well. To account for the limits to the fungibility of cash, the group will sometimes share profits by making customers fungible instead. Customers get exchanged as a way of settling up. Still, the imbalance in quality between homes in the group and between the investments each family has decided to or been able to make challenges their effort to suggest the ultimate fungibility of income and value. So in the household where Guillermina's parents and fellow associates Gerardo Huaracha and Luisa Cutipo Huaracha reside, big bills tend to become long-term savings and value storage devices, as they do among market vendors, and I have more to develop in this third site. Because many home expenses for them are subsidized, large cash units are most often earmarked for significant community expenses, including payments for collectively held water resources, as kind of the most significant one. Big bill earmarking can thus also help a household articulate itself to its community context. So when we zoom out, it becomes clear that large cash units convey meaning and organized relationships across these sites. As technologies, they're highly conspicuous things, and their use always constitutes a challenge. Spending or breaking a 100-sol bill is a decision rarely taken lightly, providing the spender a moment of hesitation, of lingering, in which his or her alignments and priorities can be assessed or adjusted. Bills of this size and weight also tend to move either really fast or really slow, as either itself a kind of virtual savings box, or as more like a paper hot potato, I guess I'm mixing metaphors here, indicating the quick circulation of wealth. And so this points us to a number of potential implications. Most fundamentally, cash's value and fungibility are not its only benefits, and perhaps a development paradigm focused on investment as a medium of social inclusion, terms of the day in Peru, should be attentive to the day-to-day entanglements large cash units have the power to configure and reveal. As a policy director in Peru's new Ministry of Development and Social Inclusion told me, the current emphasis is inclusion for growth, and you see that here in Spanish as the national strategy, and this is explicitly instead of growth for inclusion. Inclusion for growth, though, requires technologies and media of inclusion, and I see the big bill as potentially promising for that. Could big bills, along with a policy that explicitly considers not just currency, but cash units and is oriented toward a kind of cash diversity, offer an unexpected technology for poverty alleviation? And beyond just capital, could fungibility's potentializing limits lead to, or already be an index of, alternative ways of living well? And to make a final note, and I'll conclude here, development studies too often tend to center on a lack, right? Something absent that needs to be filled in. Hunger, destitution, poverty, the arrogance of intervention even. And Kolka, the communities of Kolka are not immune to these things. But I don't see this as an anthropology of poverty so much as a study of wealth. This is a study of how people in Kolka themselves are doing innovative things with ordinary tools at their disposal to fill out their own economic lives. This is a study that ultimately suggests the importance of the entanglements, innovations, and investments through which monetary value gets potentialized. Thanks so much for listening.
So thank you all for a really interesting dive into the materiality and forms, different forms that cash can take. I was struck, perhaps because of the first presentation that we heard, sort of put out these ideas of cash light versus cashless, and to my mind, it then made me think about what are banks bank-like, bank-light, or the unbanked. What is cash heavy? Is it the large bill? Is it the coin that's literally heavy? So I just thought it was worth thinking a little bit about the language that we've heard this morning in this presentation, and the kinds of associations that one could jump off just thinking about the terms like rebasement or VLE. There's a TLA, a three-letter acronym that is a very different kind of term for a very different kind of project. And in the last presentation, the verb sensiar as a simplification, but also cashing out. Could you say a little more about what sensiar means?
Yeah, so that's basically exchanging bigger bills for little ones, like trying to get coins, is basically the idea. Yeah.
Thanks. So with that, I'd just like to open up the floor to questions, either for the panel or individual speakers. I believe there's a microphone making its rounds. And if you could just introduce yourself briefly before you make your question or comment.
Hi, I'm Ivan Small. I'm a postdoctoral researcher here at IMTFI in Irvine. Thank you all for a wonderful set of papers. I really enjoyed them all and would love to ask you some individual questions afterwards. But I wanted to ask a question right now to Vivian and Wia. I was really fascinated by your discussion about your finding that although people do not prefer coins as currency, it does have this kind of unintentional effect of creating micro savings. And I was wondering, in the case of mobile money then, where these kind of minor monetary margins may not be as visible or physical in the same way, or may be surrendered to service fees by mobile money providers, are people then aware of where these margins are going to, or are people thinking of alternative ways of creating micro savings? Thank you.
Ivan, did you mean ways of creating micro savings on the mobile phone?
Well, I mean, the fact that people are that these minor amounts of money, which may be in coins, right, or made with a mobile phone. So these minor marginal amounts of money, which in the case of coins may be simply dismissed and put into a jar or something. In the case of mobile money, that's not as visible, so they may disappear in a different way into, for example, fees. But you said that there is a value to this in that it creates a kind of rainy day savings. Mm-hmm. So when people are then thinking about this switch to mobile money, there's obviously a use value to this service that people are, it's convenient in a different way, creating different forms of savings. But then are people drawing kind of a link between the fact that these fees, these small margins that are now being spent on service fees for mobile money, does that then create a situation where those small margins are not being saved via coins? So there's not the same kind of micro savings process going on. So I was just basically trying to understand if people are thinking of alternative ways of saving.
I think based on the data that we've collected so far, no. Part of that is because mobile money is in its infancy in Zambia, and based on the interviews in Lusaka, people aren't really focusing on the mobile phone as a tool to save. We found about, I think, 7% of our samples saying that they did some form of savings on the phone, but I don't think that so far it is perceived as a tool that can be used for that can and should be used for saving. yet.
Just a quick comment for, Tim Ogden from the Financial Access Initiative at NYU. So a quick comment for Eric, in case you're unaware. John Robinson has a really interesting study of small market ventures in Kenya and their inability to make change and how much it costs them in profits. Just an interesting tie-up. And then secondly, I wonder, any sense of what the inflation rate is in Peru? What is, how much are these people paying to save by holding small bills?
Yeah, I'm not sure, actually. Definitely something to look into. Thank you for that.
I'm Gil Figueroa. I'm with a company called IMM. We do international remittances. My question to Zambia is, in order to utilize the mobile money facilities, does a sender have to have a bank account, for example, with the Bank of Zambia?
No.
Then how is the money sent?
The mobile money in Zambia is handled through two mobile network operators, Airtel and MTN. So people who have those companies, Airtel or MTN, open a mobile wallet on their phone, and then the sender can send the recipient money. The recipient doesn't necessarily have to have an account with that company either, but they would then have to pay to receive the money. But it's not done, it's done independently of bank accounts for now.
Is there required a pre-deposit, a deposit in place before you use the money?
No. No. The mobile wallet is created on the phone at the mobile network operator's location, and people can have empty mobile wallets if they don't need to use mobile money. They can load mobile money onto the phone at any given time and then use it for what they want. So the wallet can be empty, and it's not. It's independent of the banking sector.
Okay, don't quite understand that. That means then that that organization is a bank itself. It's turning into a bank?
There is a lot of discussion, and there are different national models about that. So in some countries, for example, Ghana, what is done to handle that issue, because the rule for Ghana is that the mobile network operator is not a bank. What the mobile network operators do is that they work with bank partners, and that makes it okay. In Zambia, because it's a newer thing, they don't have those bank restrictions yet. They may at a later point, but because they want to promote the industry of mobile money, there are currently no banking restrictions whatsoever.
Okay.
Hi, Elizabeth Barrett from Mercy Corps. Sorry, another question for Zambia. Sorry, and through your data, it was actually contrary to what we've been seeing globally around airtime versus money transfers. In most cases, we're seeing airtime as the most popular usage. So will you be actually validating your data with the mobile network operators, just out of curiosity?
We were not planning on doing that. It's something worth doing, but it's also important to think about who uses mobile money and where people can get airtime from. And the fact is that in a lot of countries, you have airtime being sold in cards on the street. So then it's very convenient for people to just walk to the vendor, use 1 or 2 kwacha and buy airtime. And for that reason, it's not necessarily considered necessary to open a wallet and do those additional steps.
And then the next question is just with Zona, it would be interesting to look if you could watch their model as part of your research, as they've been starting to change and will be, right now you can put money in for free at Airtel, but when you go to a Zona agent, you actually have to pay. So I'd be curious to see how that changes uptake.
Thank you.
Hi, my question is for, my name is Abhishek. I run a branchless banking network out of India. And my question is for Parul and Amulya. At what income levels so my first question is that would you advocate that these VLEs be multi-service outlets, or should they just focus on financial services? And typically in India, I've seen that that the retailers tend to earn anywhere between $100 to about $400 a month on an average. And what would it take for these VLEs to reach these income levels just on, say, financial services?
One is to your first question. So the VLEs that we cover in our studies mostly in the rural areas. So no doubt these VLEs are like the retailers, and they have their existing business, and now they are like offering with the financial product as part of SBI and ISET agreement of this BC agreement. The other part of the thing is like they are offering number of the non-financial product apart from their like core business is number of government schemes. So for various government schemes and all, they are like offering you can like get the form, register over there, and all these services are like happening over there. So that is one. And so the financial motivation, I'll say, is the sample that the preliminary observation we have is the VLEs approximate their income per month income from their like existing business is about 10,000 Indian currency, and additional 15,000 they're like earning from their like this VLE engagement of offering non-financial and the financial services.
Actually, to add to that, why these incomes are so high is because of the trust levels, as we mentioned earlier. So like the downloading all these forms like college forms or registering themselves, it also acts as an employment exchange, providing information. So it's like providing a lot of, getting a lot of services at one single point. So that's why there's a lot of footfall, and when people come in, they also get to know about other services being provided by the kiosk. So it increases the revenue in that way, because people, when they come for one service, they get to know about others as well, and then they use it.
And particularly the MP government that Madhya Pradesh, that the study we are doing that is MP government is mostly channelizing most of its services in the rural area through these online platforms. So for the farmer related schemes, the farmer has to like register and go to the kiosk and get the benefits. For the student scholarship program, or the old age pension and all other securities like social security programs. So everything is like running through this online platform. So I think state government is also playing a major role in coming with a very enabling policies for various schemes.
As far as it is concerned, is their income levels from financial services more than everything else put together? And if not, then is there a risk that they will not evangelize financial services more, or they will not put in their mind share in financial services?
I think, yeah, your question is quite very interesting and relevant, but I think at this point, the very preliminary observation answering this question will be really wrong from our side. So I think this question we can like get a better clarity once we complete the whole survey and analyze the data. But the financial and the non-financial part, the one trend we have like observed is like the rural area, the VLEs, the rural area VLEs are mostly offer multi-services, as we talk about. Even like they are like drive, and the most of these non-financial products are they are offering as like seasonal. So like the school admission time. So the most of this schools and the colleges have a policy now to like a student has to like register through this online kiosk. So these are like very seasonal and the government driven policies, and the urban areas that we didn't cover in our study, but we visited most of the number of urban centers in Lucknow and some of the urban areas. So there, most of these units are like, I'll say the 90% business is the financial product drive business.
Hi, Lisa Nate, Assistant Professor of International Business at the University of South Carolina. My questions or comments are for Eric. First, this completely relatable idea, which is very, very interesting as well. So, a quick question, and this being a dissertation, how long, so things for you to think about, how long do they keep these bills at home? So the whole idea of investing and the idea of saving is that you put it somewhere and then they get a little bit from it. So the next real steps would be, it's almost like you've introduced what can I say, an intermediate variable where somebody who has the idea of saving wants to first have a large bill, and then they're going to save that. But of course, you know, is there a detrimental effect of that? Also, do they receive it? Another thing about the mechanism, is it that I give you the large bill and you say, oh, I have a large bill, I'm going to keep it? Or do I actively gather all of my small bills and take it to my friend to put it together and give me a big bill so that I can save it? So that idea as well. And then very, very related, foreign money. So in Ghana, foreign money is almost like a big bill with, it has the flash factor of it. If you're giving a gift, why do it in local currency? Give it in a foreign currency. So you can easily just add that onto it and flesh out your dissertation a little more.
Thanks so much for that. Those are some really great comments. And I think the first point you made about keeping the losses people incur from keeping some big bills versus investing it somewhere, right? And so I think the elderly couple I'm living with and kind of the third site I talked about don't have a bank account and keep just bills kind of scattered around their bedroom in different little places. And for them, I get the sense that even if there's an eventual gain from investing it somewhere, there's this sense that why would I give my money to somebody else and wait on a line and have to file all this paperwork when at least Louisa is not literate, and she's also kind of takes charge of a lot of the savings. And so there's sometimes, and at least with them, a sense that investment doesn't really make sense. And there's also, as there is for lots of different places, the idea that NGOs, one big one which I'm working with that has been in the region for some nearly 30 years, it's called DESCO, the idea of outsiders coming in from Lima or from the United States saying, no, do it like this. And people have lost a lot from that, you know, and there's a history of that. And then the foreign money, that's a great comment too, and I'll look more at that. I mean, dollars are there and are a big deal, and even now in this, you know, kind of this bigger town, but it's still far away from where a lot of the tourists and where a lot of the international trade is going on in Peru. There's lots of places to change money, and people who live there, dollars are interesting and sometimes have this shine to it. So thanks so much for those comments.
Hi, I'm Amrit from Kopo. It's a mobile payments company in Kenya, and my research is based in India, so this question is to Parul and Amulya as well. You pointed out that the village level entrepreneur obviously has a lot of incentive to work on these financial products beyond his regular business. But perhaps it's what's considering to flip this question upside down and ask, at a kiosk, there's a gamut of financial services being offered and financial products being offered. Have you seen any evidence of internal competition between these financial products? Is there a sort of cannibalization that's happening, that there are 4 products, basically the same products being sold at one kiosk, and they're kind of competing against each other? Have you seen any signals of that happening at a kiosk?
Not really at this piece, the product level of competition, but I think so one of the things in the rural, this whole setup in the rural area is the competition between VLEs in a particular geography is not there much, though it is much more exist in the urban areas. So the competition then at the product level is like at one VLE is like offering one particular product, at the other VLE is another product, or at a particular VLE unit of product which is attract. I think 4 or 5 products that Parul in the presentations talk about is, so the 4 financial products that really the VLE acknowledge this product are much demanded by the client, and this product are like revenue generating products, as well as the client appreciate this product are like beneficial to them. So the 4 products basically is there.
But actually these products are not competitive in themselves. Like they have very distinct features. So like there are RD accounts, FD accounts, simple saving accounts. So I don't think there is much competition in the product features itself. So like people who would prefer to save for the longer term, they go for an RD. So there definitely is a change in behavior that people now have an option to save for an RD or an FD, which they didn't have earlier. So that way it is there, but there's no actual competition among products.
I think we have time for one last question.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. My name is Bruno Yoy from Uganda. Mine is a simple suggestion to Vivian and Muya. Now, the way it's presented, it's like Cashlight and Cashlessness are substitutes. But my understanding would be that they can work as complements. So it would be interesting to see how the story changes if we do some bit of cross-tabulation. Now, to Eric, if I heard you well, you in a way indicated that the story you've told is based on responses from female respondents. Now, I'd also be interested to know how the story would change if we brought male respondents on board. Because as it stands, it is female intensive, so what would happen to the story if we brought on board male respondents? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the suggestion that you made. I do also agree with you that cashless and cashlight is compatible. And in fact, I would like to point out the fact that people are increasingly becoming aware that it is less inconveniencing to actually use the cashless mechanism, and kind of saying bye-bye to the aspect of making queues. And I think what is required at this moment in time is a bit of increased sensitization of the need to use cashless. But otherwise, there's quite a number of people that are beginning to realize the significance of cashless. So I do agree with you that the two systems are compatible.
And your point about gender is a really great one. I think that cash and using money and savings, by virtue of a number of development policies over the last decade or two in the region, has definitely become like a feminized process. And so you see on the NGO side and also in the communities, the people handling money, as an example of what Carla Freeman calls like a pink collar sector. And gender is definitely something I need to look into more. But a lot of what I'm doing outside of this particular study is spending time with men as well. And when I do that, we're out in the fields and tending the crops, and that's a lot of the time there. And so it's interesting to see kind of where the different sides of the economy get structured, and yeah. So thanks.
Great. So this concludes our first session. I want to thank again the presenters, as well as all the people that offered their comments and questions. And now we will have a break. It looks like refreshments are in the back. And remember, there's Southern California outside.